Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, and today we have with us another special guest by the name of Pat Kothe. Pat is the founder of EM Devices. He's someone that spent 40 years in the industry in medical device sales, had a small stint in pharma in the very beginning of his career, and even had a stint in B2B sales right out of college. And he went on to be a founder of EM Devices, and it's a company that specializes in a device that helps with the healing of abscesses. But I'm not going to say any more. I'm not going to spoil it for the episode. So as always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, where we bring innovative guests that bring you insight into the medical sales industry. And I really do hope you enjoy this interview. Hey, Pat, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Thanks so much, Samuel.
Absolutely. So, Pat, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Well, Samuel, I've been fortunate enough to be in the medical device field for about 40 years. Started off on the sales side of things, moved over into marketing, spent a lot of times with different technologies, anywhere from very complex technologies like heart valves and angioplasty, and also been involved with some simpler technologies. So over the past 40 years, had the pleasure of launching over 50 medical devices into the marketplace. I'm now CEO of a company called EM Device Lab. And what we're doing there is we're taking a very simple device into the emergency department to help with a common problem, and that's how to treat abscesses. So just passionate about the medical device field and being successful within that, and helping other people being successful as well.
Absolutely. So let's talk about EM Device. So you guys talk to us a little bit about the product. It treats abscesses. Give us a little bit more.
Yeah, so abscesses are pretty common. About 1% of all patient visits going into an emergency department are due to abscesses. And what those are is it's basically an infection under the skin that fills with pus. So some people refer to them as boils, abscesses, but it's a common thing. And
Sure.
When it occurs, it's basically you get some infection, and the area becomes red and becomes sort of the touch. And then the way to solve it is you have to open it up and get the pus out. And
Right.
That's historically been done with a scalpel. Just take a scalpel, make a 1 to 2 inch incision, and then drain everything that's out of there. But in order for it to heal, you have to keep it open. Air needs to get into that space, and then it heals from the inside out. And in order to keep it open, people would put gauze inside of that open space. But once you put the gauze in, then you have to pull the gauze out. And you could do that like up to 5 times. And you can imagine that's not a real pleasant thing for patients to experience. So my partner is a emergency medicine physician, and he's been searching for a better way to treat these abscesses. So that's what we've done, is we've come out with a different way that eliminates the large incision, makes 2 small incisions. Okay. And instead of putting gauze in, we eliminate that step, and that prevents people from having to come back into the emergency department. So it's a simple way with a simple device to make the procedure go faster, lower the failure rate of the procedure by over 40%, right. Less patient pain, and ultimately less cost for the healthcare facility. So we've launched into the U.S. marketplace, got the product through design, through FDA, and are just launching it here in the U.S. And it's had some great response because it solves some problems on the clinician side, the patient side, and the healthcare provider side.
Absolutely. So right now, the standard is maybe up to 5 visits to take care of this abscess. With your guys' device, how many visits does it reduce it to?
1.
One visit.
Instead of making that large incision, what we're doing is we're making 2 small incisions, and to keep it open, we put a piece of plastic and form a loop with a piece of plastic. And that loop stays in after the procedure is done. And the patient, all they need to do is they need to move that loop of plastic a couple of times a day to keep air flowing in there. And when it's healed, they just take a scissors and cut it and pull it out themselves. So it eliminates the need for the patient to have to go back to the healthcare facility. And, reimbursement is what it's all about in this marketplace, right? Right. So from a reimbursement standpoint, this is reimbursed with a 10-day global code. So anything that happens within that 10 days from that procedure is covered under one code. So those revisits that healthcare facilities have and physicians have, those revisits are not covered. So they're wasting money as well as time.
Right. Wow. So yeah, you're hitting it across the board. And I'm assuming these abscesses heal faster with this procedure.
Yeah, it's about the same time. It's typically, a typical abscess is going to be healed in the 3, 4, 5 day time frame. Some of them a little bit longer. But it's as I said, it's a painful thing for the patient to go through. It's also painful for them to go back to continue to have, this packing changed. So they can either go to the ED, and sometimes they go back to the primary care physician to do it. And we all know that it's not fun to upset your day and have to go back. And then that you're going in for some pain.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's not fun at all. Yeah. So how, wow. I mean, this sounds like a no-brainer. What's been the reaction? How widespread have you guys been able to take it so far?
Yeah, so no-brainer and medical device are oxymorons. So every time you hear, oh, geez, this is a simple thing, everyone should adopt it. Our business doesn't move that way. Our business moves slowly. And so what we've been trying to do, and this is typically what you do with a medical device, is you don't go out and hire a sales force right from day one and start doing it. You do a soft launch, and that soft launch, what you're doing is you're trying to learn certain things about your product and about the marketplace. Because as much pre-work that you do in launching a product, you only learn once the product hits the doors and somebody has to pull out their pocketbook and need to make a decision and make a purchase. So all of the assumptions that you're making when you're rolling out a product, you have to validate those assumptions. And that's everywhere from how does the product work in the clinician's hands? What are the true benefits that they see when they're using it? Is there anything that needs to be changed with it? What's the packaging look like? Is it working through value analysis process fine? How do we get on the shelves? Who's opening who's stocking the shelves? Who's opening the boxes? And who's supporting it? Who's setting up the procedure? Our patients, are they able to follow the directions of the physician? So all of these assumptions you need to put in there. And then there's the metrics. What's the time frame that it takes? What's the gestation period for a sale? What do you need to do in terms of getting somebody excited about it and then work through the hospital buying process? So all of those things you have to validate, because as a startup company, you're not going to hire a bunch of salespeople and have them, go out and say, okay, well, we're in value analysis now, and it's going to be, 4 to 6 months, and I got to cool my jets out here. So we've got to be able to understand things to be able to scale, because you may end up saying, okay, we're gonna start with this size sales force. Now we validated it takes X amount of time to do that. Now we've got our financial plan that matches up with the sales process, and we're launching it out that way. So we've taken a slow roll with it, and we actually launched the product, or we had first implants of the product, first use of the products mid-year last year. But remember, this is an emergency department product. Launching into COVID was not a whole lot of fun because EDs were still packed at the end of last year. And the other thing that we've seen within the ED community is that the pressure that these people are under and the staffing situations that they're under were not an optimal time to go out there and say, hey, look I got a new product. We kind of pulled back, and we're able to go through the process with a small amount of customers to do this learning. And now, basically, in the second quarter of this year, we kind of said, okay, COVID's kind of moved past the time where it's critical, where we're not going to be the jerks walking in the door trying to talk about a product when they're under siege. And now we're starting to get some customer interactions and moving through the sales process.
So you bring up a good point, because you're right. There needs to be a validation period, of course, for any product that goes to launch. Talk to us a little bit about when, what's the pivotal point where you say, okay, now it's time to get a sales force. What are you waiting for? What are you expecting to see, or what are you waiting for you to get the green light to take it to the next stage?
Well, there's a lot of different things that you need to do, Samuel. It's a matter of, first of all, is the product exactly right? So is there anything about the product that you're going to need to change? That's kind of the first thing. And one of the things about medical devices and different types and classifications of medical devices, sometimes you can learn it early, sometimes you can't. With our particular product, we did not, the pathway was not to do clinical trials. Now, we did a lot of trials in cadavers. We did a lot of trials and got over 400 clinicians to use it in a simulated manner, but simulated is simulated. It's not in real patients. Right. So if you've got a PMA product, or you've got a de novo, you take the de novo pathway where you have to do clinical trials, you can learn a little bit more about your product. If you're an exempt product or a 510K product where you don't do those clinical trials, some of that learning occurs real time once you get that product out there. So there's certain things that you can validate about product pre-approval, some things that you have to do post-approval. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's a difference between when you're talking to a clinician and say, will you use my product pre-approval versus once you hit the door. There's a big difference. I'll just give you an example. I spent 10 years in the heart valve industry. Sure. And we launched a new mechanical valve several years back into the U.S. marketplace. And there was one dominant player. St. Jude was a dominant player at that point in time with their mechanical heart valve. And we went to clinicians and said, hey, we got this new product. Here's what it is. It's being used in Europe. We've got this clinical information. They said, oh, we can't wait till you get here. Oh, we're gonna change to it because St. Jude's been putting it to us for years. They're the only player on the market. We feel that we've been overcharged. So getting that whole song and dance. Sure. We hit the marketplace with a big thud because the difference between somebody saying they're going to do something and actually doing it are two different things. Absolutely. In our instance, when you think about a cardiothoracic surgeon putting a heart valve in, they're not only putting a heart valve in and making a change that day, they're putting their reputation on the line for the life of that patient. So what, the saying back in the day was, cardiothoracic surgeons will change spouses faster. They're going to change a heart valve. And it's just for that reason is it's such an important decision for them for their lifetime that they're very cautious. And that's what we see in medicine, every day is clinicians are evidence-based. They don't make rash decisions. They make decisions that are thought out, and it usually takes a little bit of time to do that. And that's why product adoption takes a little bit of time. So as you launch that product, those are some of the things that you're looking at. You're not only looking at, how long it takes you to go through the VAC process, but it's how long does it take for a clinician to change practice, and what is the excitement level, and are your messages resonating with those clinicians? Those are some of the things that you need to do, and at that point, you're taking that feedback and you're making changes and modifications, and sometimes they're slight, and sometimes they're more than slight that are going to resonate to help launch your product. So the process, I can't give you an exact time frame on it because it all depends on your product and how much pre-work you actually did. Because there are some really good things you can do before you hit the market to try and get a lot of this information. You're not going to get all of it, but there's a difference between fine-tuning your messaging and your value propositions and overhauling them.
So far with this device, what would you say has been the biggest challenge with the adoption by clinicians, or even, and if you guys don't know what that is quite yet, what's the anticipation? Yeah,
for us, what we validated is on the sales process, we validate we can get clinician excited. We can get them to request it. We can get the value analysis team to evaluate our product and get it on the shelf. We validated that they'll purchase it. We validated that that initial champion will start to use it. What we haven't validated is how do we move the rest of the people in the hospital to start adopting that. That's kind of where we're at right now, because many products within our ecosystem, if you make a change, let's say you're going to change from one hip to another hip implant, the hospital now will have your hip on the shelf and the physicians will put that hip in. When you have a physician preference item, it's not one decision that a hospital is making. It's many, many decisions by individual clinicians. And that's our product. Our product is, we can get it on the shelf, but it has to be pulled off the shelf. And getting it pulled off the shelf is technique change. That's individual doctor change. And you need to sell to those individual doctors. So in our case, that's our challenge. And that's what we're working on right now. We think we've got validation of everything else, but now it's how do you get and change the minds of individual surgeons or individual emergency medicine physicians.
Got it. And for those out there listening that maybe they're thinking about stepping into launching a product on their own, would you say that, during this entire time, you're needing to get investment dollars to keep all this going because you haven't been able to take the product to market yet? So you're banking on investment dollars this whole time.
Yeah, so this is nothing new. This is something that whether you're a startup or whether you're in a large company, and I've been in large companies and done the same thing, you have to learn something. And sometimes those learning curves are in a 90-day period. Sometimes they're a little bit longer. It depends on how much you need to learn and what that learning is and what changes you need to make. My preference is always to do a soft launch for whatever you're doing because you're going to learn some things. Now, as I said, you can learn a lot pre-market if you ask the right questions and if you do the right things. What you see in startups many times is you see that's engineering driven or it's driven by somebody other than a professional marketing person or a professional salesperson. And if you wait too long to bring that professional marketing or salesperson in, the ability to learn those things early on and make those changes become more difficult. Right. So if you bring that sales or marketing leader on and they're able to dig in and ask the hard questions and try and get things, my heart valve example is a perfect thing. If we would have been better at answering the question of what is it going to take? Or, hey, doctor, I know you're telling me that you'll change, but look me in the eye here. I cut out the BS. Mm-hmm. Is this something that you will actually do? When I come and talk to you the day that it's released, what are you going to, let's put ourselves forward into that position. Now tell me the real feelings you're going to have when I come to you. Sure. So all of those things are important as somebody is coming in with a new product, and that's to me it's just the right way to launch a product, whether you're big or small or a startup.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit, and I want to dive into a little bit why you decided to go this route, considering you were in the corporate route for a while. You were in the corporate life for a while, 40 years. I mean, you put in your time. So when did you decide to say, you know what, I want to hang it up? Well, let me ask that question differently.
Hang it up.
Let me ask that question differently. Was it more of I just want to do something on my own? That's always been my ambition. It's always been in the back of my mind. Or was it more of one of your customers saw this opportunity and said, look, we can make something of this, hence the EM device, and you decided to go that route, and here you are. What brought you to where you are now, moving from the corporate structure that you were previously in?
So, yeah, so I was in a corporate structure, and I was with a heart valve company, and we actually got sold, and it just didn't work out for me. We just got to put it that way.
Right.
The company and the person I was reporting to, and I, it just wasn't a good fit. So I moved over into the startup business at that point. That's something that I've been thinking about for several years, and I'd actually had some other ideas of startups on my own while I was at the heart valve company. And it's just something that if you've got it in you, you need to scratch that itch. And I had it in me and moved over into a startup, and then into another startup, and into another startup. And you just you figure out what is right for you and your personality and what you want to do. It's not to be, that one is better than the other. It's what's best for you. And one of the things that I enjoy about what you're doing and is that when salespeople are coming in, they don't know a lot of things. You've got a green person. They don't know what medical device is. They don't know what pharma is. They don't know what diagnostics is.
Right.
How do you learn those things to say, I'm right for this particular marketplace? And that's one of the things I think that you guys, do well, is that you're not having a one size fits all. Everybody has to be a spine rep. Everybody needs to be in that space. Everything's different. I'll give you my experience in sales. So I started off in sales, and I started off on the pharma side of things. And first of all, I started off, I did my 1 year copier sales, and then moved.
So wait. So let's go back to college. If we're going to go there, let's go back to college. So out of college, you did 1 year copier sales.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Did 1 year of copier sales, and then decided that wasn't quite what I wanted to do. Sure. And I saw the medical space and thought the medical space could be a really interesting space for me. And I got my start in a company that had pharma products, and they also had a device. So we had a joint venture. It was American Hospital Supply at the time. American Critical Care was a division. We had some pharma products, and we had a joint venture on a Swan-Ganz catheter, a catheter that's still in use today. But what I discovered there is I'm not a molecule guy. Okay, I'm not a pharma guy. That didn't turn me on. I was not, I didn't do well in chemistry in high school. Didn't take it in college. It was not the direction I wanted to go. I liked having a product in my hands. I liked being able to talk through it, and more or less romance the product. That's kind of the way I describe it. That fit my personality much better than pharma. Sure. So I learned that about myself, and then moved into the device field from there. Did my 2 years in pharma, and then moved onto the device side, and that's what really floated my boat. And that's what I've devoted my career to, because that's what I like. But there's other people that pharma is what they like. It's discovering what's good for you. It's not jamming something down on somebody. You have to understand who you are and what you like.
I love it. Considering you had such a perspective and such a long career, and you got the taste of pharma, you got a medical device, and now you're in the startup world. Give us some of the things you believe make amazing sales reps, and I guess we'll stay in the med device space. When it comes to medical devices, what are maybe the top 3 things that you say you have to see, or that you've seen over and over again, and is going to make a successful sales rep?
Well, I'm a big believer that past success predicts future success. Okay. If you've been successful in the past, that's something that's very important to me as I'm evaluating people. And the other thing is, how did you achieve your success? Do you understand how you achieved your success? Did you luck into it? Did somebody give you a territory that was prime? That's not reproducible. So what exactly did you do, and do you understand about success that is going to take you forward, that you can repeat it? I've hired people that have been successful and then not successful with your product, and it could be many different things. Sure. They're reproducibility wasn't there because they didn't understand it. Their drive changed. Okay. I could sit there and say, drive is one of the most important things to do. Are you, the old thing of getting out of bed is, the most important thing. I believe that. I sincerely do. Are you going to get up every day, be consistent, and go do it? Or are you going to say, I'm going to go play golf today, or I'm going to, whatever. I'm going to do my office work today. Okay, right. That's a good excuse for not going out and interacting. So the drive is a really critical thing to assess. What is it about the drive? And then more specifically, and digging into that is the drive consistent with your values? And I look at that from my standpoint. If somebody says, I want to make, gazillion dollars, hey, great. Once you make that gazillion dollars,
what do you do? What happens?
What do you do next? What is that? Okay. But the other big thing for me is, am I in it for me, or am I in it for we? Okay. Am I in it? Am I the star of the show, or are my customers the star of the show? If you put your customers first, that's going to be long-term success. That's going to be a person that your customers are going to gravitate towards, and they're going to have relationships with, and that means long-term success. I'm also one, and this is kind of changed over the years, but your typical sales rep career path, it usually looks like 2 years in the first job, 3 or 4 years in the second job, and then a little bit longer stint in the third job, and then you kind of move from there. What we're seeing right now is we're seeing much shorter tenures in jobs. And as somebody who's doing the hiring, that's something that I'm going to consider. I'm really going to consider that, because when you think about this short tenured jobs, as a hiring person, it's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into making a hire. And if I see somebody that's got the 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 2, back to back to back to back, well, what's going to be, what's going to make that change? Okay, that's what I can expect.
So you're thinking that, well, they're just going to make me a 1 to 2 position. Why should I hire that person if they're going to be here that short of a time?
Well, and it's so I put a poll out on LinkedIn, because I saw somebody that did one of these 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 2, and I wanted to find out a little bit about the hiring. What hiring managers are thinking right now. And the question that I posed was, would you rather have a person that's going to be 120% of quota, and they're going to leave in 2 years, or somebody that's going to be 100% of quota, and they're going to be there for the long term? It really goes to who that manager is and how they value things. Because
really it goes to how long that manager wants to stay in that spot. Because that manager only wants to be there for 2 years, then that 2-year rep's the best thing to happen to them.
That's exactly it. If as the manager, if you're saying, hey, I want to get promoted. So the best way for me to get promoted is to hire a 2-year wonder rep, and they're going to, I'll ride that up, and I'll get my promotion. And then, what happens in the territory or in the region, that's somebody else's problem. Now, if I'm the VP of sales, and you ask that same question to the VP of sales, you may get a different answer. Okay? Right. So it depends on who you are and where you are, how you answer that question. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying is that if you're managing your career and you're coming in as a salesperson, and we know, hey, the first job is probably not going to be, a long-term deal. That's typically, the way it goes. But if you're one of the people that are, moving from job to job to job, think about who's making the hires and what their value systems are and how old they are. Are they a boomer? Are they Gen Z? Are they a millennial? What do they value? And what does your track record say about you long term?
Mm-hmm.
That's, that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about or don't think deeply enough about, because managing your career is something that's important to all of us. But when you flip it around and take it from the me and what's good for me versus the we, the company, the customer, it's a little bit different picture.
So then how do you feel then about the rep that says, I've spent 1 to 2 years being a performer in all these different positions, but this company has been my destination, and I've done that to get all the acquired skills to be a performer at this company and stay in this company for the long term. If you heard something like that, would you believe it? Would you resonate with that? I mean, what do you think of?
It depends. I mean, that's something that you really have to dig into. And that's the art of hiring. The art of hiring is not about, reading a resume and say, this is the past and this is the qualifications. The art of hiring is to get down into somebody's motivations. And do you believe them? Are they consistent with what they're saying? Is their past consistent with what they're saying in the future? I'll always be skeptical. And this is what we deal with clinicians every day. Is they're skeptical. You're bringing them a product and they're saying, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but where's the data?
Right.
And I, as a hiring person, it's the same way. You could tell me a lot of things, but your past is important. And then I've got to figure out what really makes you tick. And that's my job as a hiring manager, is to get into the motivations, because the single greatest predictor of success is going to be, are you motivated to do it? What is your why?
So let me ask you this then, because there's a new phenomenon that's happening now in this day and age. And I believe that COVID was a big catalyst for it. And that is the opportunity for a representative to brand themselves on social media. Before I go any further, now that we're in the vein of, do you believe them and what you take into account when you're potentially wanting to hire someone, how do you view the ability to brand yourself on social media as this, powerful, very resourceful rep? How do you see that when it comes to the person that you're talking to potentially interview?
I think when you are out there and you've got a presence on social media and you're doing it the right way and you're being yourself and you're providing value, I am 100% all for it. I think it's a fantastic way for you to market yourself, to market what you're doing and your company. But that doesn't mean that you should try and create something that you're not. You can aspire to do different things, but you can't create it. And that I've got a podcast, and the podcast is called Mastering Medical Device. And I did a podcast episode recently, and the episode was titled "Creating Your Personal Brand is Garbage Advice." Okay.
Okay.
I didn't say building your personal brand. I said creating your personal brand. Mm-hmm. And creating means I am going to look at a marketplace and I'm going to say, hey, I want to be the expert in this marketplace. So I'm going to create myself as being the expert. Creating doesn't mean anything. It means that you're building a fictitious something. Building off of who you are is extremely valuable. And I kind of put it this way, and branding is an interesting thing. And we've moved from company brands and product brands, and now we have personal branding. I've been responsible for company brands and product brands. And one of the first things that you say, and one of the objectives that you say when you're creating a brand or you're building your own personal product brand or company brand, is we want to get our customers to know and trust us. Right. That's what you want to do. I want to get our customers to know and trust us. So what you do is, LinkedIn is a great platform for getting people to know you. Well, how do you get people to trust you? If you are inconsistent with who you are and what you say, it's a recipe for disaster.
Well, I mean, that makes it difficult for people to trust you, just plain and simple.
That's exactly it. So I'll tell you, another example. So I was at a company responsible for a product, And we went out to the marketplace and said, what does the marketplace think of us? Because what we said is our product is better clinically, it's superior, easier to use, blah, 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 all that stuff. We did a brand audit and came back after we talked to all of our customers, a bunch of our customers. And we came back and the message was, you are positioned as the low price leader. Okay. Completely different of the marketplace versus our own perception. It really doesn't matter what you say. It's what the customers believe of you.
Perception is reality.
Well, and it goes back to this consistency thing. Mm-hmm. If you are trying to create something that you're not and putting that out on social media, that is inconsistent. It's inconsistency. And that going back to the know and trust thing, you may be known out there, but if you're inconsistent, who you truly are, it's going to come out. It's just going to make you look bad. Again, you can aspire things. And I'm on social media too. I've got a podcast. I put stuff out. I put content out there to do it. But you should be skeptical of me. You should be skeptical of anybody that you listen to out there. Are they consistent? Are they really telling things that are real, that are in there for me or them? And one of my observances on social media is there's a lot of people who come in and try and create their own brand, and you can see right through it. You can see that they're in it. I've now decided that I need to create something that people are going to buy into. And when I see that, I run away.
So let me ask you this, and this is something everyone's heard this phrase, you fake it till you make it. And there's two schools of thought. There's the school of thought that's, no, you can't fake it till you make it. You either have it or you don't, and you come out with what you have. And then there's a school of thought that, you definitely should fake it till you make it. And you do your best to provide whatever you're claiming to have until you absolutely have it. I've seen both succeed. How do you view that phrase, and how do you take that into account into what you're saying right now?
I hate that phrase. I think it's a horrendous way to do things. If you fake it until you make it, you're lying to people. And that is trust. That is, something that is so abhorrent to me that people lie. So the fake it till you make it crowd, I don't have any good feelings about that at all. Mm-hmm. You can learn while you are trying to make it. You can aspire while you're trying to make it, but don't fake it. Because I know if you tell me, hey, I'm an expert in sales and I've got 1.5 years of sales in there. Well, you're not an expert in sales. Okay. You've got 1.5 years of sales. You're not an expert. Don't try and tell me you're an expert.
Sure.
Because over the long term, you learn a lot of things. Now, you could be very smart and have some great insights into somebody that's had a year and a half in sales, but you're not an expert. And by faking it and saying I'm sorry, it's just not consistent. And that erodes that trust that you're trying to build. And that's your reputation. And again, take away the words personal branding and put personal reputation in there. And I think it helps to understand this branding concept and how important it is for you to be consistent.
So let me ask you this, in medical sales, my definition of medical sales is all encompassing. It includes pharmaceutical, diagnostic testing, all of it. In medical device sales, we'll speak to your field, your expertise. You see medical device influencers. I think out of all the industries, even if you consider testing, supplies, pharma, biotech, I think the highest number of influencers is in the medical device sales space. Now, I don't know if any of them are claiming to be experts, but a lot of them are claiming to have the know-how on how to be what you need to be in the medical device sales space. What's your take on that? And I want to know, because I believe it's recent, right? This has literally happened in the past year or two. Again, COVID was a catalyst for this. All these medical device reps said, you know what? I can't see customers. I'm going to get online and do something about it. What is your view on what's happening in that regard?
Well, I embrace it too. I mean, I embrace it from my company standpoint. Is online is the new prospecting tool. Okay. And when you look at the sales funnel, and the sales funnel has historically been your sales reps going out and doing the prospecting and doing the top of the sales funnel as well as the bottom of the sales funnel. Well, social media is now the top of the sales funnel. That's the way it should be. It should be utilized. And you can build things at scale a lot faster with great content to fill that top of the funnel. The bottom of the funnel is typically still, in my estimation, on the device side, you still need face-to-face when you get more towards the bottom of the funnel. But the top of the funnel, you can utilize a lot of these social and digital platforms to be able to help with that. Again, it's got to be done the right way. If you're trying to build and create something that you're not to be an expert, your clinicians are going to see that too. And they're going to see, I'm in it, that guy's in it for him and he's trying to build his own deal. And I don't want any part of that. If you come in and say, I'm going to provide content that's going to be interesting and important for my community, that's a reputation that I'd want to have. To me, that's the way that you do it. So when I hear the word influencer, some of the times, you hear the word influencer and you think of, Kardashians and stuff like that. I don't think our industry needs that. But when you're trying to influence different people with great content that is valuable for them, not for you, you may benefit from it, but it's content that you're giving from yourself to somebody else.
Sure.
That is really valuable. And that's where I would put my focus on, and building your community that way.
Sure. You said that social media has become the top of the funnel, and it's become the critical piece of selling in this day and age. What do you think is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? How is that going to evolve from your perspective?
I think it's going to continue to evolve. It's it's common across everything that we buy, and the interesting thing is doctors are people too. Okay, they're consumers too. And when Samuel, when you go out and buy a car, the first time that you see that car is not when you walk on the lot. Okay, you've already done all your research on it. You already know about it. You know everything about what it looks like, how it behaves, all the specs on it. When you walk into the showroom, you don't need or want somebody to be talking you through the whole thing. You want to move. You're already in that funnel. You want to move down further. Physicians are the same way. They've heard about it online at meetings. They've done some research on it. They've already been on your website. They've already done that. Now it's a matter of fine tuning their needs, understanding their needs, putting it in front of them, and moving them down at the bottom of that funnel. So I think that's kind of the new model that we're going to continue to see evolve. And it's there's companies that are going in kicking and screaming with this. I had the opportunity to launch a product into a marketplace that I knew was changing. So I wasn't going to go out with the traditional sales model and let's hire salespeople and let them do that. Sure. I had the opportunity to do it the other way. Well, there's a lot of companies that are out there that have legacy systems and legacy understandings of what their sales process is, and sales reps who are not trained to work that top of the funnel differently, and marketing organizations that are not nimble enough to give up some of that. Mm-hmm. Because from a marketing standpoint, one of the issues always is I control the content because we've got a regulatory responsibility to have the content come out in a certain way. And if I give that up to the sales representative and they're out there saying some things that they shouldn't be saying, Well, now I've got a real problem. I've got an FDA issue.
On your hands.
So you have to do it responsibly. You have to understand it. Just because we've got this platform, LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, that people are going on and having a presence on, they've got to make sure that they are trained correctly so that they're not getting themselves personally in trouble and their companies in trouble. So there's a lot we still have to figure out here, and how far can a rep push it, and how far can the company give a little bit more rope?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Pat. I like it. So, Pat, we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. But before we do, tell us a little bit about your own personal life, family, kids. How do you make this all happen? How do you have time to have a 40-year stellar career, then decide to go do multiple startups and push this device you're pushing today? Talk to us about how you make that all happen.
Yeah, so got a great family. I've got a beautiful wife, four kids that are all grown, 8 grandkids at this point. So wow. That's kind of the joy to your life. And you go through seasons throughout your career, and sometimes it's the thought of work-life balance doesn't really work. It's never 50-50. It's never balanced. There's some points in time where you're devoting more to your career. There's some points in time you're devoting more to your family, and those are the choices that we make. You have to find your own balance and how it goes. One of my favorite books is a book called When Pride Still Mattered, and it's a biography of Vince Lombardi. I grew up in Wisconsin. I'm a Wisconsin boy, Packer fan, and in essence, what that book showed was that Lombardi was revered as a football coach, not so much as a family man.
Sure,
he sacrificed his family for immortality on the football field.
Right.
And that's a choice that some people make. It's not the choice that I make. But everyone makes their own choices in how they want to do that. So you go through your career, you go through your life, and you say, what is important to me? Why is it important to me? How do I want to structure things? And knowing that it's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be messy. There's going to be times when you're on the road and the dog eats the hamster. Okay. That happens, happens. There's going to be times when you're on vacation, and you get pulled into some disaster that happened at work.
Sure.
It's always messy. It's never 50-50. But if you choose a career that you like, that you enjoy, that you feel good about, that's the most important thing.
I love it. All right, we're going to close this up with our lightning round. You already answered one of the questions, the best book you've read in the last 6 months, but this is your favorite book, so maybe you'll have a different book for the last 6 months. Do you?
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book, and this is one of the things. You try and understand your customers as much as you possibly can. You try and understand their lives as much as you possibly can. So I just picked up a book. It's called Tornado of Life, A Doctor's Journey Through Constraints and Creativity in the ER. My customers are emergency department docs. I want to know as much as I possibly can. And this is a great read because
that sounds good. I'm going to check it out. Tornado of Life. By who?
Yeah. His name is Jay Barak. He's an emergency medicine physician. And what's interesting to me about it is doctors' lives are messy too. And the practice of medicine is messy. And then you take the ED, it becomes even more messy because people are coming to visit you on the worst day of their life. Right. And they have to understand what's going on with that patient amidst chaos. So it's a fascinating read to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna check that one out. Best movie best movie or TV show you've seen the last 6 months?
Let's see. This weekend I watched something pretty interesting. It was on Netflix. It was a documentary. I think it's called Earth Storms, and went through tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes, and saw footage that I've never seen before. Some time lapse footage of tornadoes and storms that was just fascinating to me.
Wow.
So often, we caught up in the drama of a story. Well, the story of our planet is pretty interesting too. So I thought that was pretty.
I like it. I like it. See, the note for everyone. I'm going to check that as well. And then best meal you've had in the last 6 months.
Well, I live in Texas, and I've had the privilege of eating a lot of great places throughout the world. But I'm pretty simple in what I like to eat. Barbecue is great. We've got some great barbecue places here in Texas, and places like the Salt Lick and just Rudy's Barbecue, a place that's in a gas station that has just some great brisket. That's one of my favorites.
Rudy's Barbecue. Everybody note it down. And then lastly, best experience you've had in the last 6 months.
I come from a family of 8, and I've got 4 brothers, and every couple of years we get together and we play golf. And, with the pandemic, had to take that a little bit further, delay that. So we got together this past September, and it's just a great time. And I also kind of put that together with getting together with some of my high school buddies, the guys that I played ball with, guys that I hadn't seen in 40 years. And we got together and told all the lies and just had a great time. So that was a fantastic trip, and something that I'll cherish.
That's beautiful. One thing before we wrap it up, we're going to wrap it up right now. But one thing I didn't touch on that I want to ask you about, you know about our program, and about programs like ours. What is the importance in this day and age to enter medical sales? And again, my definition of medical sales, which is all encompassing. When someone that's not in the industry wants to enter, it's become really crowded. I mean, I think we alluded to it a little earlier. It's the sexiest career in the world now. I mean, everybody wants to be a medical sales rep, and it's become extremely challenging to get into. How do you see the value of things like our program and what we do for professionals that want to get in?
Well, first of all, we've got a fantastic industry. It's an industry that I think is a great one to spend your career in. It's not for everyone. There are certain things about it that are limiting, but when you can make changes in patients' lives and help clinicians to deliver great quality medicine, it's just a fantastic career. And that being said, the closer you are to the customer, the more valuable you are. The closer you are to the customer, the more value you bring to an organization. So I came up from sales. That's where I got my start. I would not trade that in for anything.
Sure.
Because it gave me the value of the patient, understanding what the customer is going through, understanding the whole process of medicine from up close. So that's where sales is so important. Yeah, it is crowded. It's a competitive field. But if you're in sales, don't be afraid of competition. If you're afraid of competition and hard work to get into it, you're not going to be successful. If you're not approaching getting a sales job in medical device the same way that you're approaching your sales process when you're dealing with clinicians, you're not going to be successful anyways. So it's good. That's kind of like a weeding out of salespeople. If you choose that you want to attack and get into the sales marketplace, but you can do it dumb or you can do it smart. You could try and do it by yourself. And if you do it by yourself, you can get there. It may take you a little bit longer, and there may be, some hard times before you get there. But if there's a way that you can help to cut that down, take advantage of it. So right. Programs like yours, where you're helping people to navigate the waters, is, those are, it's a great program. It's a great way for people to get in. But getting in is the first step. If going back to this fake it till you make it thing, if you're trying to, get the job, and the most important thing is, I'm going to get the job. Well, once you get there, you can be bounced out real fast. It's kind of like, the old thing, people spend more time planning their wedding than they do planning the marriage. And this is the same thing.
Is that the truth?
Yeah, but this is the same thing. They plan, I need to get the job and get in there. Well, think through that. Think past that. I need to get the job, but I need to approach getting the job the same way that I'm going to approach selling. So the way that you approach selling is you learn as much as you can about the sales process. You need to go through sales training. You need to go through product training. You need to understand, what a hospital marketplace is. You need to understand who the players are. You need to understand the customer. All of these things you need to do. Well, there are similar skills that you need to pick up when you're getting that sales job. And if you can go with a program like yours that says, here's the process, and here are some of the things that you need to do. Well, it's kind of like a cheat code. So pick up your cheat code and do it, but keep your eye on the sales job and the skills that you're picking up when getting the sales job and how they're going to translate into you doing your job.
You know what? Drop the mic. That was fantastic, Pat. Pat, it was wonderful speaking to you today. Thank you for the time. And we look forward to everything that happens with EM Device.
Thanks, Samuel. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that was Pat Kothe. Fascinating interview. I really love the discussion we had around what he's seen in his time in the industry, what branding has done to the industry, and what it really means to truly build a brand and build a reputation as opposed to creating a brand and faking it till you make it. I think it's really insightful, and I think it's something that everyone should take note of. As we have access to putting more of ourselves out there for the world to see, we just want to keep in mind that we really are building a reputation, and that should be the goal. Whatever you're claiming to do your best to provide the best to your customers and stand behind it so that when people continue to see you and see your content, they continue to trust you and, of course, want to do more business with you. Now, some of you might be out there listening to this as you're at the gym or on your way to your next account or just maybe in the kitchen making a meal. If you're listening to this episode and you're someone that wants to get into the medical sales industry, you heard Pat talk about it, how it's very competitive and people need to take advantage of resources that are going to help them get there faster. And of course, you all know, if you've been a listener for any length of time, that we have the resource that we stand behind, the Medical Sales Career Builder. Go to evolveyoursuccess.com, select Attain Medical Sales Role, and let's get you into this resource, this program that can cut your journey from potentially 1 to 2 years, even 3 years, down to potentially 90 days. This is what we can do. This is what we know how to do. And we want to help you get the position of your dreams and get into the medical sales industry. And when I say medical, I'm talking about pharmaceutical, biotech, medical device, medical testing, medical diagnostic testing, genomic testing, wound care, dental sales, and the list goes on. So don't think about it anymore. Don't worry about it anymore. Take action and go to evolveyoursuccess.com, select Attain Medical Sales Role, and let's have a conversation and get you into the position that you've been wanting to be in. And then lastly, for those of you that are out there thinking about your brand, or you're thinking about increasing your numbers this year or next year, and you're saying, how do I do it? What resource can I take advantage of to truly elevate my game, elevate everything I'm doing in my territory? What resource can I take advantage of to truly brand myself as the thought leader I know I am, so my customers can see me and want to do more business? Again, let's take some action. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select Improve Sales Performance. Take a look at, we have 2 programs, the Sales Training Program and the LinkedIn Building Program. Take advantage, have a conversation, and let's get you to where you want to be. As always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. We do our best to bring you innovative guests that bring you insight into medical sales. So make sure you stay tuned for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.